Welcome back to Making Sense of Real Estate. Bill Jones, Remax and Results Realty, and today is Friday. It's our live Q&A, and we have brought back our ace here, Mr. Bryan Schube. Thank you, sir.
Yep, no problem.
Coming back in here today in the hot seat. So today, or this week's topic, we're talking about why house closings fall through. So we're going to go into some of the topics we covered throughout the week, and then we got some questions that came in and that were I guess we'll go ahead and, if I can get my computer to cooperate here, we'll go ahead and get through these questions then. So first item we covered here, so house closings falling apart. So this would be something that's already under contract. Buyer and seller come to agreement and we're moving forward, banks involved, appraisals involved, things like that. So if that point, one of the biggest reasons a deal doesn't come together is the buyer didn't get financed. So what's a problem with that, or how does that necessarily affect the deal not coming together?
Yeah, it's always important as a seller, and even more on your agent to verify that the buyer does have a pre-approval letter from a bank, a reputable lender, and just making sure that they are pre-approved, they've turned in the documents, their credit's been checked. All of those things definitely help get that aligned and making sure that the transaction comes together then for both parties.
The bank has vetted them some even beforehand, and then you're moving forward with that.
And I think you've talked about the pre-approval versus pre-qualification a little bit as well. I believe you covered that. Again, always better to have that pre-approval instead of the pre-qualification.
Yeah, because the pre-qualification, we talked about this a bunch here, but if you're not familiar with that pre-qualification, you literally get online and say, I make $100,000 a year, I have no debt and everything else, and say whatever you want. Of course, the bank's going to say, sure, we'll take that. But a pre-approval, full pre-approval, they've looked at your income, they've looked at what you've got going on.
Yep, and you've been vetted then by a bank or a lender. Yep.
All right, so that's one of the big reasons it falls apart here. And we are live, so if you got a question, comment, anything like that, go ahead and pop it in there. And again, I dared you last week, go ahead and do it here. If you don't believe me here, we've had some people say you're definitely not live, but we are, so try me out if you want. Okay, home inspections revealed issues. Again, that's another reason why, and no home is perfect. We know that here, but if it revealed issues, what happens with that? Or what's common issues that come up that you've seen?
Yep. Again, like you said, no home is absolutely perfect. You're always going to run into issues. A lot of the structural stuff we see, is where typically the transaction falls apart. Foundations, roof, furnace, kind of the more
big ticket,
more expensive things is typically where they do. So it's just always important to keep that in mind, that no home is perfect. So so just like I said, keep that in mind.
Yep, and try to get over some of the smaller issues. We've talked about before the 80-10-10 rule, but any of that stuff, if it's a major issue, something you can't get negotiated out, then obviously it's going to be a problem. But if you don't like the paint in the living room,
yeah, that smaller stuff, the $200-300 stuff can always be fixed. So.
Yeah. All right. Next question. We talked about the appraisal coming in low, and it seems like that's happened a little more common now, just with pricing going up. Appraisers are always looking behind. So, what's something you've run into with that then?
Yeah, like you said, with the current market situation, more and more appraisals seem like they're coming in low. So, again, it's going to just open back up negotiations there for you. You can always go back, ask the sellers to reduce price. And if they're not willing to, again, that's typically where transactions fall apart, because buyers don't have the extra funds to be able to come up with that money then.
Yep, and we've had some situations where the buyer is putting some money down in the bank. If you're working with a good lender, they're able to figure something out with that too sometimes. So, all right, some of the questions we had come in. What if the buyer can't sell their current home? Is that a big issue then? It's pretty
self-explanatory. If a transaction's contingent upon a buyer selling their current home, obviously if you can't get that current home sold, more than likely the transaction is going to fall apart then.
So, and contingent being the contract is contingent upon something happening, the appraisal, inspection, a home sale, something along that line. So, all right, another question we had come in: property liens and/or title issues. Is that a reason you see home closings falling through?
Yes, I would say most of the time you're going to run into issues. Obviously the title company is doing the title search, they're doing all of that, that background checking on the property. Most of the time, I think you can obviously get those worked out. However, it does take a lot of, it can take time to get that done then.
Yep. So, and if you're under the gun or gotta move or the deal's gotta happen, within a certain time frame, that certainly can present it. Yep. Sometimes it's something simple like a driveway agreement or something like that. So, but if working with an agent, working with a good title company, hopefully they've worked through that. Never-ending negotiation. So we've had all kind of people talk about this. So what are they talking about there?
Yeah, so I would say, there are some negotiations where, if it's an inspection report or something like that, maybe you're not able to get something figured out. So negotiations can just keep going back and forth, or, extensions do come in. So it's just a matter of, working through those and getting that done. Like we just talked about with the property liens and title fee or the title issues, then obviously sometimes it can take time. It's just a matter of, just getting it worked out.
And sometimes we've had people, negotiating over appliances or just certain fixes or things like that. So, or, it's usually appraisal issues or home inspection issues, things like that, where you're back and forth. Nobody can decide on who's taking care of it, who's fixing it. All right, here's a touchy one here. Is a FSBO and FSBO, so for sale by owner, more likely to fall through? So if it's just, if they're not represented by a real estate agent, are those deals more likely to fall through? That's a pretty broad brush question.
Yep, I would say they can be, absolutely.
Janet's saying yes.
I would say they can be. I don't want to say absolutely they are. But they just don't have the experience and knowledge that us as real estate agents have. Obviously, we went to
this job for a reason.
Yeah,
right?
We went to school. We got the education. We know the process, pretty well. So
yeah, not that it can't be done, but again, it just comes into the negotiation and the fixes and things that need to happen with a transaction. Because we tell a lot of people from the get-go, expect there to be some hurdles or some roadblocks or something to get through. Rarely ever is a deal. I don't care who you have involved. Is it going to go from A to Z, all the way to the closing table without something coming up? So how can I prevent my closing from falling through? We're looking for a couple different perspectives. So first, as a buyer, how can I prevent my closing from falling through?
Yeah, I would say, before you do anything, then always check with your lender or your bank before you spend any large amounts of cash.
So I shouldn't go buy a brand new car right before closing?
Yeah, I would say don't go buy a brand new car before closing. Don't go out and buy an engagement ring before closing. Don't do anything that, open new lines of credit.
Are you trying to tell us something, Brian?
I am not.
Okay.
Don't go out and open any new lines of credit, without checking with your bank or your lender first.
Will just commented. Sorry. So no. So we've had people do that. Literally, we've talked about it before. Literally standing in line at a furniture store or at Lowe's and called. You've taken that call. I've taken that call. We just work about to buy a whole bunch of furniture, about to do whatever. Don't do that as a buyer. You definitely don't want to do that. Don't let anybody look at your credit. Don't buy anything. So, all right. So same question. How can I prevent my closing from falling through as a seller? I mean, there's no guarantees, but what can you do to help prevent that?
Yeah. I mean, the main thing with the seller is just being, open to anything that the buyer may ask for. A lot of times we see that with the inspection request or something like that. Always be open to, again, no home is perfect. So more than likely you're going to have to do some type of repairs or fixes when it comes to that. So I would just say be open and willing to do that.
So, and especially with any of the government loans, and your agent should kind of coach you up on that too, things that might be expected. Doesn't mean you have to do everything. I mean, the buyer can do things. I mean, heck, I've gone out and done stuff, just get the job done sometimes, but just be willing to have that conversation and kind of go from there. So I think we're getting right down to the end here. Last question of the day, unless something else comes in here, which does happen. So it's a super aggressive seller's market right now. A lot of buyers clamoring for homes. They go under contract fast more often than not, but sometimes they come back on the market for a myriad of reasons, like why house closings fall through. We've talked about this. So if a house has come back on the market once, twice, 3 times after going under contract, contingent or pending, you'll see that marked a couple different ways. Is that a red flag or is that an opportunity?
I would say it could go either way. I mean, obviously we don't know what the reason that property fell through was. Maybe the buyer financing could have fell through twice, or it could be because of home inspection. So it's really hard to, determine that without actually being in, one of those previous offers then.
So it depends on the circumstance. So a house can get a stigma from something like that. So if it's been it goes on the market, under contract 2-3 days later and off the market for 30 days, 60 days, whatever, and it comes back, the assumption is what the heck's wrong with the house a lot of times. So.
And I mean, especially in today's market, buyers don't have a whole lot of time to decide on what they want to do. So sometimes we do see, them kind of regret their decisions later on.
Sure, a little bit of buyer's remorse. So is it a red flag or an opportunity? Maybe both, right?
Yeah, I would say it could be both. It just depends
on the circumstance. All right. I don't see anything else that's come in here, but we'll come back next week. We'll do another live Q&A. Mr. Schube. Oh, I forgot to put your information in here then. How can people get a hold of you here? If they want to find, is it in there? Let me keep rolling here. Sarah says it's in there. It is. Nice work, miss. All right, Brian, I get the number on the screen, but how is somebody going to call or text you?
Yeah, I would say my cell's the best way, my personal, so you can reach me anytime. Number's 567-207-6518.
All right, so if you're online, you can see that there, and I think we have your handles in too. So you're pretty active on social media, right?
Yep.
So find you there. All right, well, we'll keep rolling here. Make sure to check back next week. We'll have a brand new topic and another live Q&A, and get your questions in. So thanks for joining us, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Once again here.
Thanks for having me.
We'll keep making sense of real estate. Thanks for student.